just talking about this latest development in this Crown saga, are you concerned that this sort of decision, I guess mostly coming from bad PR, is that going to affect the sort of tourism flows coming into Queensland, particularly when it comes to the casinos in the region?
No, look, what I see, Heidi, is a massive, not only a recovery in tourism in Queensland and Australia, but essentially a new period of boom, which for Queensland, tourism is worth about $23 billion a year. We earn about $53.5 million a day in terms of visitor spend and contribution, and that's only going to improve with what we're going to be seeing, we believe, out of a very strong and emerging middle class right across Asia. So, look, I'm not concerned by these matters at all. We've got great natural assets, great people, and we're now seeing some great investment in tourism infrastructure.
I mean, a lot's been said about the emerging middle class when it comes out of China. That's a story that's been going on for many years now. Where do you see the most demand? Is it still the Chinese tourist, or are you looking sort of more towards India, Southeast Asia as growth areas?
Oh, look, we'll be continuing to focus on those traditional areas. There's no doubt when you look at the possibility for great growth coming out of China, you only need to look at how many people in the Chinese population have a passport and how many will be able to access a visa to go overseas. The potential for growth is extraordinary. So we're not banking on that, but we expect that it's going to be the sort of growth that we can really have people getting a firm career in tourism as opposed to it being a stepping stone to some other area.
Yeah, moving from tourism, just asking you to put your trade and investment hat on. We had obviously the cyclone situation. What's your estimate of the damage and sort of implications coming through from that?
Well, from a trading perspective, Queensland had its best year ever in terms of merchandise exports. We had $61.1 billion of merchandise exports over the calendar year actually over the April quarter this year. And what we've seen has been an economic impact with severe tropical cyclone Debbie of about $2 billion. And as what it means for my budget, over the forward estimates, it's about a $1.1 billion hit. Now, this year it's a hit in terms of the economy in the resources area, a lot of coal, rail infrastructure, ports. And,
what's the impact on GDP that you see?
Well, we think the GDP is going to be having about 3/4 of a percentage point shaved off it, but we're expecting to recover to about 3% economic growth. It's really important to note that Queensland's place in Australia having 25 years of uninterrupted economic growth, and of course Queensland has been outpacing the national growth since about 1992. So it's a very, very important thing for Queensland. We know that economic growth means jobs, and that's a really important factor that our government's been pursuing.
Curtis, are your coal shipments coming back to normal?
So we expect the impact for the current year, 2016-17, to be about 10 million tonnes. That's obviously being conservative, but we are buoyed by some recent news that there's seemingly going to be increased demand out of China. But of course, we've also factored in a very, very large investment over the last few years into liquefied natural gas, and we're starting to see some very, very good exports there as well. So,
right.
As you could appreciate, Betty, Queensland's not a one-trick pony. We're a very, very diverse economy.
Indeed, outside of tourism, certainly you've got other thriving industries. Just staying on coal, the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, has expressed further support for expanding coal-fired plants, and I'm curious if you're supportive of that as well.
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is that Queensland is quite unique in the Australian context. We own all of our energy assets, including our generation capacity. And of course, another coal-fired power station isn't what we're looking to do. We've got a fleet of coal-fired power stations. We'll continue to operate them. Mm-hmm. But we're pushing into a renewable future. And the Finkel report handed down recently talked about a 42% penetration of renewables by 2030. Our target's 50% in Queensland, and we've now got a proposal to put a hydro scheme on the Burdekin Falls Dam, which will hopefully be a very big support for baseload power into Northern Australia.
But does that mean, do you think Turnbull and your energy minister, do you think then that means that they're out of touch or out of step with where the energy industry is going?
Oh, look, I would say that Australia is without a comprehensive and united energy policy, one that brings together traditional energy with the renewables. And that's where Queensland's new Powering Queensland plan comes into play. We've got a very, very big future ahead of us, and we believe that Queensland can lead the nation. We can be the powerhouse of the nation. What we need is a national energy policy, one that reflects the sort of attitude we have in Queensland, one that will, I think, create many, many jobs into the future, but also, importantly, provide energy security.
Mining's clearly the lifeblood when it comes to Queensland and a number of other states. And Adani's been very, very controversial. It's been green lit. We just had this interesting report, this $42 billion valuation on the Great Barrier Reef coming through. How do you, I guess, balance, the fact that tourism, the natural resources story, and also the natural, beauty and asset story to make sure that one doesn't kind of impact negatively the other?
Well, as I said, we've got a very clear plan about moving to a renewables future, and you can't get there overnight. So what we have to do is ensure we can continue to provide the economic growth we'll experience from opening up new resources opportunities. Our new plan looks at not only the Galilee Basin, but also the Surat Basin and the Northwest Minerals Province. And of course, when we go forward, we really believe that that's where Queensland's other natural resources like gas come into play. A great transitional energy source, one that we hope will be able to help us with consistency of supply to ensure that we can then move into renewables and have greater connectivity with renewables with our grid.
Right.
We are very, very well placed in Queensland, and I guess the point I'd make is that we are so uniquely placed
Curtis?
that we control as a government the assets that we have.
Just really quickly, though, I want to make sure we ask you this just on the news today about Crown Resorts and the jailing of some of their people in China. Is that going to have a damping effect, do you think, on Chinese tourists going into regions like Queensland?
Look, I don't believe so at all. I think what we're seeing is a fantastic opportunity with more tourists coming from China. I know that we've been working very hard on attracting more direct flights. We've announced many already that are coming directly into Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and we've been working very hard to get additional direct flights into Cairns, which of course is a very, very important centre. If you ask anyone, I think, in terms of where the markets are in Queensland that they know and understand, it's Cairns, the Gold Coast and Brisbane. And right now we've just about got that triangle complete with direct flights.